You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
Mauritius, it's a perfect democracy where you can have a stable currency. So for us, it was a perfect setup. Our solution was to build a platform which is matching qualified African talents with international companies. We think that there is an opportunity also for the talent economy. And this is where I think Africa needs to get talents remaining in Africa. Our goal also is to try to find the perfect banking solution to pay our talents on behalf of our customer. And African has to follow up and bring also their value to the system.
Stay tuned as we bring you inspiring people who are unlocking Africa's economic potential. You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast with your host, Tessa Adamu.
Welcome to the Unlocking Africa podcast, where we find amazing people who are doing amazing things to unlock Africa's economic potential. Today, we have another special guest. We have Nicolas Goldstein, who is co-founder of Talentum, a company that is redefining the gig economy in Africa. Welcome to the podcast, Nicolas. How are you?
Thank you, Teresa. Hello, everybody. I'm very fine today.
Fantastic. How's everything in Mauritius?
Well, we are well in Mauritius. So the weather is fine, sunny all the time. So we are pretty good here. And I will be happy to talk about what we do here with Talentum.
Brilliant. So I thought before we get going, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Nicolas Goldstein?
Sure. So let's say that I have been for 20 years in the outsourcing industries. I started 15 years back in Mauritius when they started to build the BPO space. And I was out of university, and one of my first company was a call center, and they sent me in Mauritius just to build their BPO space. And this is how I started as a young guy 15 years ago in the BPO and outsourcing space. And since then, I'm still in this market, and I try to disrupt the HR and the outsourcing market. And that's why I decided 5 years ago to create Talentum.com.
Fantastic. So you've given us a nice brief overview of who you are and why you moved from France to Mauritius. So what is it that has made you stay all these years?
Yes, in fact, it's very simple. I've been traveling extensively all over the world for my job. But 5 years ago, we decided with my wife to settle for life in Mauritius. Before I was traveling, and now we decided to set up in Mauritius. Why in Mauritius? Because we thought it is a perfect hub to reach Africa. We have extensive connection. Before COVID, we had extensive connection with all major African cities. Mauritius, it's a perfect democracy where you can have also a stable currency, and you can have also euro and dollars as a currency in this country. So for us, I think it was a perfect setup to live, work, and also to have some nice leisure.
Brilliant. So you've given us a great overview of why you decided to settle in Mauritius. So if you go back, you're the co-founder of Talentum, which is a platform that enables companies to source and employ remote working teams in Africa. How did you identify that there is a need for this business, and what is it that you aim to achieve through Talentum?
Of course. So in fact, we started from studies from a very well-known consulting firm from US and UK. They are projecting that we are going to have a lack of 10 million skilled workers in northern countries, while in southern countries, we are going to have one student of two going out of universities who won't have a job in Africa. So our solution was to build a platform which is matching African talents, qualified African talents, ready to work remotely with international companies who have difficulties to recruit in their country. And in fact, we did the proof of concept before COVID. We had companies willing to work remotely with African talents, and it works. And now with COVID, we are growing rapidly and very fast because people understood that talents are everywhere in Africa. We have some great talents.
Thank you for that overview. So you identified there was a need for the business through some detailed market research and proof of concept.
Exactly. And we did the proof of concept and it worked. So that's why now we have to invest more in the technology, more in the community. So our goal now is to work to get the best community by categories. And I think we are going to come after about what you are talking about, the gig economy, because I think there is a difference between the gig economy and the talent economy. In fact, the gig economy, this is what Upwork is doing. I don't know if you are familiar with this platform. Yes. So they started to give some small works to people. And for example, I need to do my logo. I need someone for 3 days. And this is not what we are doing with Talenteum. What we are doing with Talenteum, we are more a talent economy platform where we provide a full-time job with a decent salary to our workers. So this is different because you can just project yourself with a career, working in a company with us at Talenteum. And it's not, like we said, a short-term job that you can get on all the freelancing platform. So this is a difference we are from all the people in this industry of the freelance economy, the gig economy. I know the gig economy is going to be huge and it's coming in Africa and it's going to be well. But on our side, we think that there is an opportunity also for the talent economy. And this is where I think Africa needs to get talents remaining in Africa. In Africa, we need to build the middle class, which is lacking now. Unfortunately, in Africa, we have the very rich and the very poor, and there is a lack in the middle class. So we have to follow a little bit what India has been doing. In India now, there is a middle class, and hopefully that Africa will follow what is there as a bit archaic.
You've touched on some key points there, which I'd like to go into detail. Obviously, you've given us a brief overview in terms of the difference between the gig economy and the talent economy. I guess my next point is there are quite a few talent/employment platforms available these days, as you kind of mentioned, in terms of Upwork and a few other platforms. What is Talentum's value proposition and how does it work? Why do companies pay for the service that you offer?
Yes. So what we do is we are sourcing, onboarding and employing people on behalf of our customer. So currently, during the pandemic and the COVID, you have seen so many people raising a lot of money doing the remote work EOR, employee of records business. You have some people like Deal, Oyster HR, Remote.com, and Globalization Partners. All these people have been coming hard to the market in order that you can hire everywhere in the world compliantly. And what we do on top of them is we are doing the sourcing. So it means that we can find you the right talents in the right country. You can hire him without having legal entities in Africa. And we are focused, of course, in Africa because I think there is a big opportunity in the next 5 years in Africa. And that's why we are starting to be focused into this continent.
You've given us a fantastic insight into your value proposition and, sourcing the right talent in Africa and how you see Africa as the next emerging market for the gig economy or the talent economy. So your platform uses a community approach in terms of it relies on collaboration and partnerships?
Yes. So in fact, we think that there is important to build a community. This is what we have been doing since the beginning. So until now, we have more than 10,000 talents in our platform. These talents are open to opportunities and they have more than 12 categories. So of course, you have all these engineers, web developers, and so on, which are almost 50% of our community because this is where you have a lot of demand. But we are also some financial analysts, accountants, legal operators, designer, business developers, infographists. So we have all kind of talents who could work remotely available in our platform. And our goal is to multiply by 10, by 20 this community, because if we have a community where we provide the tools to work remotely, they are going to stay with us, and we are providing them some great international opportunities.
So I guess community is at the heart of the platform and what you do in terms of the service that you offer and how the platform is structured. So with this, when you're employing people, obviously one of the main purposes that people use the platform is to receive employment and receive payment. But we know that one of the challenges when doing business in Africa is cross-border payments. So I'm assuming that you have to navigate this challenge in terms of enabling payments from international companies to employees who are based in Africa. Is it possible to explain what technology is used within the platform to drive payments within and outside of the platform?
You are touching a very good point. When we started, we used to have talents in the 2-3 countries in Africa, and we have seen the difficulties to manage different currencies, to pay people from different countries. So we understood that it was not possible to work with only one bank. So in fact, now in Talenteon platform, we are working with several banks. Few of them are online. So I can give you the names. For example, we are working with Payoneer, Flutterwave,
Brilliant,
and also local banks in each country. So based on each people we have in front of us, we just select the best solution in order that we pay less transaction and the talents get what he wants. Because what we have seen is when people are working abroad with other solutions like PayPal and other solutions, these people are taking so much percentage that is not possible now. So that's why our goal also is to try to find the perfect banking solution to pay our talents on behalf of our customer. The other things that we started to do is few people in Africa, mainly in Francophone Africa, they wanted to be paid in euro, but in their country, they can't have a euro account.
Okay.
So we started also to open a bank account with one of our partners, an online bank, to provide them a euro account in order that they can receive their money in euro. And they just withdraw in the local currency what they need, and they keep like what they want in euro. And this is what we provide also to the people from our community. It's not a job or full-time job, but it's also a possibility to open a bank account in 48 hours. And sometimes it's quicker than opening one in their country. So we are always trying to find new solution for our community. Sometimes it's bank account, sometimes it's insurance, sometimes it's tools for them to work remotely. So that's why we want to create the perfect solution for our community.
Thank you for that very detailed explanation. So you've explained how you work with different banks and fintechs for payment or banking solutions to pay your talent, and also some of the nuances and trends in making payments in Africa. So if we look at trends per se, one of the trends we are seeing in Africa is what people are describing as a talent boom, where we're seeing almost a shortage of talent within, say, Europe and America or developed markets, but we're seeing a boom within Africa. What are some of the interesting trends that you're seeing with regards to the talent boom that are directly related or intersect with the gig economy?
Well, what we have seen in Africa is people now are much more aware of working remotely instead of traveling and trying to go to Europe or US to get a job. So now they understood that they can get a decent salary while remaining in their country. So people start to be aware. And this is good because we try to find a solution against brain drain. Otherwise, Africa will lose all the brain they have. So with this solution to find a decent work, full-time job with international companies, we can keep talents in Africa. And this is also what we are trying to explain to young people, that there is an opportunity to remain in your country and to get a good job. So this is what we are seeing, and this is people are evolving. I like when I'm talking to a few conference to talk about entrepreneurship, because I think that the future of Africa is we need to have more African entrepreneurship. We are going to create a solution that Africa needs. And I think if Africa wants to be the next booming and growing continent, the solution has to come with entrepreneur and, if possible, African entrepreneur.
Thank you. So I guess at the beginning of your answer there, you mentioned in terms of people's perception in Africa of the gig economy has changed recently. One thing I've noticed is obviously a surge in the number of young Africans who are embracing remote working or the gig economy. Do you think this is an impact from COVID in terms of the pandemic where people were forced to work remotely, or something else that is driving this change of perception with regard to the gig economy?
I think there is a mix of the COVID, of course, which has put in the light the remote work, but also because media are talking more and more about startup in Africa, investments of fund in the startup in Africa. And also people are more and more into internet, and the young people are on social media, and they are seeing what the world is doing. So Africa is part of the world, and we should do like everyone else. And I think this is just the way it is. So the gig economy is coming because it's coming all over the world. And I think Africa is also part of it. 15 years ago, we used to talk a lot about India, which is the back office of US and so on. Now, nobody talked about Africa, and now this is time for Africa. And I think the services will have some new famous people from Africa, which is going to be building startups and being CEO of big tech companies in the coming years.
Fantastic. So you mentioned in terms of the changing perception of the gig economy in Africa is driven, obviously, well, I guess COVID was a catalyst, but it's also driven by the global change of perception of the African economy. So there's more opportunities with regards to international companies being interested in Africa. So if we look at the type of people who would try and access the gig economy, from your platform, what demographic of Africans are attracted to this type of work with regards, I guess, age, gender, education level, location?
In our platform, it's mainly people who are qualified. They're already working, sometimes remotely or not, and they are just looking for new opportunities. For now, it's difficult for us to work with people with no qualification or no expertise, because a lot of our customer wants to work with someone which is already independent and know how to work quick and fast. And yes, we are selling qualified workers. So the genders is what we see at Talent Hubs. We have 50% female, 50% man, 50% women and men.
That's amazing.
So we try to respect the parity and a few SDG from the United Nations. And now what I see is we need to invest in human capital by doing some employability bootcamp. The education of tomorrow is different from the education of yesterday. And I think that we really need to see some new ventures coming out in the education. I don't know if you have followed the news recently, but ENCO Education has raised money to open new schools in Africa.
Yes.
You have LAU, African Leadership University. Fred Swaniker is doing an amazing job in Africa by forming and training African talents. So we have some great opportunity about education, edutech. And I think this is what Africa needs to train again and again the young population and the population which is going out of university. They need to be trained to understand what is going on outside Africa and also to understand what will be the jobs of tomorrow. So, and if you don't want your job to be taken by robots, you need to understand as well what is a good job that you are willing to invest time and training. So sometimes it's good also to show that to the people, and education is part of it. And we need to think about the fourth revolution and revolution of talents by forming people. And I think this is a must to do.
I agree 100% regarding that. You mentioned that we should invest in human capital in Africa. I was hoping we could go into more detail regarding that and, I guess, talentum. What solutions are you hoping to provide or are currently providing to, I guess, find solutions to some of the employment challenges that are faced in Africa?
Yeah, I think when I'm doing some one-to-one meeting with talents, I understand sometimes that they are a bit lost about their career. And my goal will be to help people get a better job and a better career by helping and guiding them leading them about what to do next based on your current studies. And I think we need to find a way to build and the next generation by helping them and guide them of where they can find a job of tomorrow. And I think this is where we have to invest. So invest in guiding these people, guiding where are the jobs of tomorrow, and try to be a step ahead of what other people are doing. A step ahead means in 5 years, what will be the jobs that the market will need. And if African people already invest in few technologies, for example, I always push people to invest in software academy instead of doing an MBA. I explain myself. People are investing so much in this kind of Salesforce, SAP, and so on. And we lack some people how to use technology. So tomorrow, if we have talents who knows how to use technology and to use how to manage this kind of software which are used by enterprise and companies, I'm sure that you are not going to stay away of a job. So sometimes it's good to understand a few academies which could be online. Some are hybrid, but online you can boost your expertise and your career just by registering to few academies which are sometimes free instead of doing an MBA. And sometimes MBA are not sometimes the right studies to do when it's not a famous one.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you mentioned about guiding and developing future talent in Africa, also investing in technology, skills and education in Africa, which I agree with because there is huge demand for tech talent in Africa at the moment. So if we look at that in terms of how can companies attract, develop and retain talent in Africa, it can be, I guess, in the tech sector or different sectors?
Yes. So in fact, to attract people now, it's just a matter of what do you sell to them. Your company needs to be like a product. You need to be sexy enough that people wants to join you. Now, if I'm a talent and I know that I have expertise everybody needs, I'm just going to see where there is companies who offer me the best job compared to my intention. So few of them, they are just going through the salary. So what is my salary? And if I'm well paid, I'll come to you. Other people, it's just a matter of what is your product? What is your vision? So that's why you need to work on the brand of your company to attract. And then to retain people, I think you just have to work on a career plan with them, saying that this is where you are now. This is where you want to go in the next years, and you will be part of it. So I think now it's just a question of communication. People are in the startup world. They are working differently, and we need to work as well differently in Africa, just to show that this is what we are doing. For example, for Talentum, we are building a community. This is what we do. We are an impact company. We respect 3 SDG from United Nations. And a lot of people are coming to us because they like what we are doing. They like the vision, the sentence, and they are coming to us instead of coming to others. So that's why we need to attract these people by our story.
I like that. You touched on some important points in terms of companies have to make themselves attractive with regards to their brand, their image, in order to attract top talent. So, with regards to attracting top talent, what are some of the nuances in the online recruitment process that you probably encounter in Africa and nowhere else?
First of all, I will say that sometimes we have talents who are coming to us because they only want to work remotely. As we are a 100% remote company, people are sometimes coming to us because they know and they have a good productivity when they remain working at home. So first of all, they come to us to work remotely and to find them a job 100% remote. Then in Africa, what we have seen is people are willing to receive advice and to work based on training themselves to get a better job. So I think that they are open to suggestion and to train themselves. And this is the future of work as well. You need to train yourself during all your career. You don't have to remain in your expertise. You just need to be aware and train yourself every year.
Thank you for that. With regards to online recruitment in Africa and some of the nuances, do you think there needs to be a cultural shift in regards to how some African countries perceive online working and also embracing the gig economy? And if so, how do you think this can be done?
Let's say that currently we are working in all Africa, but I see that there is a big way coming from several African countries. For example, I see a lot of opportunity with, of course, Nigeria, where we have a lot of manpower, but people are really open to work remotely and work with all the startup world. We have Kenya, South Africa, we have Morocco, Tunisia, Cameroon, and we have also Egypt, Mauritius, Madagascar. So this is a country where we see there is a lot of talent, and these people are open to work remotely. They are open to see what is going on in the startup world, in the tech ecosystem. Now, the issue we are going to have is an issue of energy and connectivity, internet. So if we want Africa to boom, we'll need to invest in the energy, because sometimes it's not possible to have some power cut, to have internet connection, which is 2 times higher than in Europe. So when we'll have solve this issue of energy in Africa, it will be the next step of a booming continent. So this is what I'm saying is we have to invest in education, in entrepreneurship, but as well as energy. That's why we call that the 3E. We have to invest in energy, education, entrepreneurship in Africa.
You've raised some interesting points there in terms of the change in perception of online working in several African markets, mainly the larger markets, I'm assuming, places like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, maybe Egypt as well. And also some of the challenges with regards to stable power supply and what can be done or needs to be done in order to shape the future and make remote working more accessible to people in the future. So if you look at the future, what trends are you seeing in Africa in terms of the online or just the recruitment landscape that you're not seeing in the rest of the world?
Tricky question, because I'm only working in the African ecosystem, so I only see my market. But what I hear and understand from Europe, for example, the market is very tense. It's difficult to find the talents, and that's why they are coming to us. Otherwise, they will have remained in Europe. So if they are coming to us, it's not a matter of paying less or to having a low-cost country to work with. It was a case 10 or 15 years ago, but it's not the case anymore. So the market in Europe is so tense that they are opening new doors. And what we do with Africa is we are opening doors of Africa in order that European companies can tap into this pool of talents we have currently in Africa. But it's not easy. We have huge talents, a huge quantity. We have to dig and find the best one, and we have then to match the right talents with the companies. So it's a question of technology, but also human. We need also people need to understand the culture of the people they have in front of us. So it's a mix of communication, culture, and technology.
Fantastic. You mentioned how the recruitment landscape in Europe is tense and obviously creating opportunities for Africa, which could lay some great foundations for the future. Interestingly, last week I had an interview with Satoshi Shinada, who is a prominent investor in African tech. And he mentioned that one of the trends in Africa that he is extremely excited about is the gig economy. So, as someone who is fully embedded in, I guess, that kind of ecosystem, why should people be excited about the gig economy in Africa?
I think the gig economy is going with the huge number of people we are going to have on the market in the next 5 to 10 years. So as it's mentioned in the gig economy, it's the power of many people which are doing small tasks, which are creating the value. So that's why investors are betting and investing in the gig economy in Africa, because there is a huge opportunity with the number of demography which is growing in Africa and the number of workforce which is growing as well. Gig economy will follow with the demography of Africa. Recently, I used to talk with Microsoft, and they are also betting into gig economy in Africa. In fact, they used to work with supplier in a call center for their hotline and so on. And now they are testing, and that's why they came to us. And they are testing also the gig economy in order that they can give the power back to talents and work with freelancers to give them work which is paid at the task. So it means they don't have a salary, but they can get a salary, but they are paid on each tickets they are responding and so on. So this is what we could call the gig economy. People are paid based on what they provide and what they produce. And that's what I'm seeing. Big companies are investing in the gig economy. And when it's well done and when technology is giving the framework to succeed, I think there is a big opportunity, and not only in Africa, but all over the world.
Fantastic. I like that. So you've mentioned in terms of how the gig economy in Africa presents huge opportunity in terms of, although it provides employment doing small tasks, those tasks all add up. So from the gig economy providing opportunity for employment, how does that kind of trickle-down effect impact African economies?
I think it's very important when we talk about gig economy to give a legal framework to work on it. Is it gig economy to create some low-cost job? I think we have to refuse it, and we don't have to bet on this gig economy, which is equal to low cost and to low poor people doing some small task. So I am in favor of bringing a legal framework to gig economy. And in order that if you hire someone, this guy has to be registered as a self-employed or an entrepreneur. And if you create an entrepreneur which is working into the gig economy, these people are paying tax in their country and they are bringing their value to their country. And their money is not sent by Western Union or informal way of getting money. This is what currently Africa is doing. They are receiving money with Western Union or PayPal and so on. Tomorrow, if the gig economy is growing, we need to provide a legal framework to help all these people to become self-employed, to have a decent salary. And this is what we are working, for example, with people with Microsoft. They are willing to work with Talentum in order that we can do all the compliance all of the gig workers, in order that these people are well registered in their country and they can be paid on the production side on what they produce. So for the company, it's a flexibility, and this is what people are looking for. Companies are looking for flexibility and agility. But on the other hand, they have a decent salary and they are well paid. So I think it has to be a win-win match, gig economy, but people has to win enough money to live, and the company has to have enough productivity to be happy about the gig economy they are doing. So I think this is the perfect match I'm seeing in the gig economy.
I think that's a very important point, extremely important. So you mentioned in terms of bringing legal framework for the gig economy so it's fair, equitable, sustainable, and creates social impact for the future. If we stick on the theme of the future in terms of the future of Africa, where do you see Africa in 5 years' time from the perspective of the gig economy or the talent economy?
Well, in the next 5 years, Africa will have raised their middle class because they will have more and more people staying in their country and getting a decent job. So this is my dream, and I'm thinking that it's possible to get that. So in the next 5 to 10 years to 20 years, Africa has to evolve positively by having some more and more qualified job. It will come perhaps with Western companies who are going to settle in Africa. We are going to bring some knowledge, and African has to follow up and bring also their value to the system. And if everything goes well, I think Africa is a continent of growth for the next 15 years.
I agree. You've painted a extremely positive and extremely possible picture of where you see Africa in 5 years' time. So if we look closer to home, where do you see yourself and Talentum in 5 years' time?
I think in the next 5 years, we are going to migrate from a web platform to an ecosystem. I think what we need to provide to African talents and companies is tools and an ecosystem in order that all these people can work remotely, softly, and that's why we need to provide not enough matching and sourcing and recruitment, but we need to provide bank accounts, solution to have an insurance, tools to work remotely, and all the ecosystem people's needs for the future of work. So I think the next 5 years, we are going to be an ecosystem of solution for companies and talents. And hopefully we are going to, for now, we have 10,000 people in our database. I think we are going to be 100,000, which is not perhaps 200 or 500,000 people in our database, qualified database. That's what we intend to do.
Brilliant vision. You've detailed the plans in terms of how you see Talentum evolving and how you will create a ecosystem of talent solutions and to move from 10,000 to 100,000 people, which I think you'll definitely achieve because I've seen how quickly you've grown over the last couple of years. So that is definitely possible and achievable. So yes, fantastic. Thank you for that, Nicolas.
Quote of the week.
As people, we often have quotes, mantras, proverbs, or even affirmations that keep us going when times are hard or when times are good. Do you have one that you can share with us today?
Yes.
Fantastic.
I will say, get things done and remain focused.
Concise and straight to the point. I agree. You always have to get things done and stay focused. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us, Nicolas. So as we're coming to the end of the conversation, do you have any closing remarks and final calls to action for people who are potentially interested in exploring the gig talent economy as an employee or as an employer?
Well, if you're a company and you are struggling to find your talents, you should definitely come to us at talenteum.com. I'm sure we are going to find you the right talents. And if you are talents and you are looking for international opportunity to work remotely and you are based in Africa, you are at the right place. Check talenteum.com. Thank you so much, Tercer, for this opportunity. It was an amazing chat with you.
Thank you for that. And I'm excited to see how the platform develops over the next couple of years. And as you heard it here, the gig economy in Africa is where to be. It is the future, and there are plenty of opportunities. Nicolas, that has been an extremely enjoyable conversation. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. You've given me some food for thought, some discussion points that I'd like to explore further in the future. Thank you for taking the time out for joining us today on the Unlocking Africa podcast.
Thank you, Tercer. Take care.
Thank you, and we will speak soon.
Perfect. Speak soon. Bye.
Thank you to everyone who has listened and stayed tuned to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, or tell a friend about it. You can also rate, review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you, and see you next week for the Unlocking Africa podcast.